A Hateful Passion, A Lost Love by Hortense J. Spillers. In class, we have been discussing novels like Uncle Tom's Cabin, An Incident in the Life of a Slave Girl, set in the 19th century. These novels both depict the cruelties of slavery through the eyes of female contemporaries. Similarly, these novels illustrate a theme of struggle for African American women marked by racial prejudice. Moving forward to Toni Morrison's Sula, we encounter a different set of time in which an African American woman is exploring her liberation with no particular regard to her race but to her own individuality. In this podcast, I will examine Hortense J. Spillers' literary critique, A Hateful Passion, A Lost Love for the new female representation of Black women in the 20th century. Spillers' literary critique of Sula is based on the reformation Black female characterization has undergone in literary works throughout the 20th century. Spiller regards Sula the character as a literal and figurative breakthrough toward the assertion of what we may call, in relation to her literary relatives, the new female being. Spiller compares the characterization of Sula to two other literary figures, Janie Stark's and Zora Neale Hurston's Their Eyes Were Watching God of 1937, and Byrie Ware of Margaret Walker's Jubilee of 1966. Additionally, Spiller contrasts the three African American writers of these literary pieces by not only their depiction of female possibilities, but also a widely divergent vocabulary of feeling. The point Spillers is trying to illustrate here is that the three authors use social and moral values to depict distinct models of Black female characters. In Margaret Walker's Jubilee, the female character Byrie Ware embodies a communal ideal. Ware, as a Black woman, exists for her race and in maternal relationship to its profoundest needs and wishes. Sula, on the other hand, lives for herself and has no wish to mother anyone, let alone the Black race, in some symbolic concession to a collective need. In other words, Sula's character is more about her individual thoughts and actions, with no real emphasis on the issues of her race. Respectively, Spiller attests that if Byrie is woman for the other, then Sula is woman for self. Additionally, Spiller sees Walker's Jubilee as a tale derived from the author's female ancestors. She suggests that this is a story of four mothers, a celebration of their stunning faith and their powers of endurance. In that sense, Spiller notes that Jubilee is not so much a study of characters as it is an examination of the struggles faced by African American characters over the color of their skin. Jubilee, she attests, does not introduce ambiguity or irony or uncertainty, or perhaps even individualism, as potentially thematic material because it is a portrayal of a collective survival. In this way, Morrison's Sula and Hurston's Janie Stark's characterizations portray individuality as a character trait, whereas Walker Byrie Ware is a part of a whole. Moving back in time to the 30s, Their Eyes Were Watching God anticipates thematic emphasis for Sula to the extent that in both these novels, only the adventurous personality is heroic and that in both the root of experience is poisonous. In other words, a Black female character would want to act on her will and impulsivity to get where she needs to be rather than wait for her circumstances to change. She would benefit from breaking loose from the hold of her biography as ancestral roots imposed. Therefore, as a new female representation, Morrison's novel narrows in to Sula's inconsistencies towards morals. She lived completely free of ambition, with no affection for money or property or things, no greed, with simply no ego. For that reason, she felt no compulsion to verify herself, be consistent with herself. This being Morrison's post-problem for Sula as the heroine, self-betrayal. Sula is solely her own drive and her own downfall. She is like a wanderer or a free spirit. Compared with past heroines of Black American fiction, Sula exists foremost in her own consciousness. To that extent, Sula and Their Eyes Were Watching God are studies in contrast to Walker as they depict the same form of values. Sula reverses the customary trend toward moral growth and became a symbol of radical immorality and consequently radical freedom. Spillers credited Sula's negative naysaying freedom as a necessary declaration of independence by the Black female writer in her pursuit of a vocabulary of gesture, both verbal and motor. In this, Morrison, Sula does not parallel the infamous ideology of the ogre complex, usually viewed as the dominant trait of Black female personality. Spillers believed this was due to the partisan storytelling of Morrison's own particular history as a Black female. Furthermore, Spillers suggests that Hurston's Janie Stark is a clear precedent to Sula. Though not historically sequenced, these characters embody similar representations of Black females. In both cases, the writer wishes to examine the social constraints that befell the characters, using low mimetic mode of realism, that is, an instance of realism in which the characters are not decisively superior in moral or social condition to the reader. Moreover, what Spillers is suggesting through her overall literary critique is that Sula Peace is for Black American literature, if not for the incredibly rich potential of Black American female personality, a radical alternative to Valerie Ware and less so to placid Janie Starks. In other words, Sula's will toward rebellion is in itself a stunning idea. Her embodiment of the new female being is more defiant, adventurous, and personal. On this note, Spiller concludes that the new female being's liberation paradoxically has no particular dimension in time, yet it is for all time. This is the end of my podcast on Hortense J. Spiller's critique on Toni Morrison's Sula. Reading this literary criticism, I found it interesting how pre-existing characterizations of Black females contribute to the new females that Sula represents. This reading is enlightening because it is notable that a shift was made back to ancestral roots from a representation similar to the new female being of today.